Rubber Beauties, Rubber Beauties, the truth to themselves. Rubber Beauties, Rubber Beauties, the truth. It's true, it's true, it's true. Rubber Beauties, Rubber Beauties, the truth to themselves.
As we begin Rubber Beauties, the after show to the Beauties Podcast with my friends Lester, Stoff, and Puffy, I have a question for our listeners. Unfortunately, Stoff, listeners can't answer live during a pod, can they?
Not yet.
Oh, okay. It's not like Zoom calls where they could all come in. Because that would be funny if like some guy just came in and said, "Hey, Jimmy, I'm here. I got to answer."
Well, we could do that, though. If people just submit their Skype IDs, we can do random calls.
That's true.
Do we really want all our listeners' Skype ideas on the podcast?
Wow.
Why not?
Maybe we do. Sweep.
We do. All right, send us your Skype IDs, and we'll just have everybody on next week.
Yes.
I'm really sad if there's only 4 other people. One guy from Moncton. No, so actually that's the point I was trying to make. I don't have any idea about how podcast ratings and such work, but Stoff has access to some information on these things. And the first installment of Beauties did very well. But somehow the first installment of Rubber Beauties did better than Beauties.
Yeah.
So how this is the question I have for our listeners. Why are some of you listening to this podcast before you've listened to the podcast that we're talking about in this podcast? I say there's only one thing. It's only me on the other podcast. So it has to be the love for Puffy and Lester is so much that they don't even care about listening to the actual pod. They just want to hear more of you talking about that pod.
I think that this pod is like the Cole's Notes version of the Beauties pod, so people, they don't
cheating.
have time.
They're cheating.
You can't cheat, but we need the Beauties pod to do well. So maybe we can't give away everything. Wasn't the point to talk about everything that happened in the story stuff?
Well, that's kind of the point, yeah, and to give you a little bit more behind the scenes. I will say by now it's actually kind of evened out a bit, but halfway through the week, the Rubber Beauties podcast was like beating Beauties 3-1. Which made absolutely no sense.
I love you people, but the Beauties podcast is it's a very high end. Wouldn't you guys say high end produced?
Very, very much so. Very much so.
Radio documentary.
Yes.
So please, if you are tuning in to this episode 2 of Rubber Beauties, the Beauties After Show, please stop right now. Go back, listen to Beauties. It's a short pod. It's not. What is it like? 20 minutes stuff?
Yeah. 15 to 20.
Yeah, it's a very digestible, you can go drive to the gas station, and by the time you get back, boy, you've heard 2 stories.
What's funny though? This dovetails into something that I've heard about viewership habits for people, and particularly the millennials, and that is they won't watch a sporting event. They'll watch the highlights. Mm-hmm. Right? So maybe this is what we're seeing. They're watching the highlights, or they're checking out the highlights of the pod.
So if we want a really big number, we should do an after show of the after show.
Exactly.
Great minds, Puffy. I was just about to say that.
We will be the biggest thing going. It'll be us and Joe Rogan.
Hey guys, welcome to the Rubber Beauties after show of Rubber Beauties. Remember when Puffy made that funny line comparing it to Joe Rogan back in minute 4? Oh God, what a mess this will be. Okay, well, before John, I will try to. I guess we'll give it away again, but I can only beg so often to listen to Beauties before you listen to Rubber Beauties. It will enhance the listening of Rubber Beauties. We told the stories. Stoff and I wanted to put 2 stories from the defending recently crowned Stanley Cup champion Tampa Bay Lightning into one episode, and thus we have stories from both Steven Stamkos and John Cooper. There's actually quite a lot of Tampa Bay Lightning content in the book, which worked out well because I didn't know they were going to win the Stanley Cup back in January or so when I was writing this book. But
if you did, you should have told Puffy.
Yeah, I could have made a little bit of money on that.
So, first of all, I guess we'll start with John Cooper's story, which I will say is one of my favorites in the book, just because it's exactly when I envisioned this book, it was exactly what I wanted, which was just a fantastic hockey story that involves a game and a crazy story outside the game. And when he called me and said, "Hey, how about this one?" and told me that story, I said, "This is exactly what Beauties is supposed to be about." So, Cooper, by the way, congratulations, John, on your Stanley Cup championship. As it says in the book, he's won at every single level. He's won now championship every league. The guy was a lawyer playing beer league and got a coaching gig, and won high school championship, and then went on and won every basic minor league there is in hockey, including the Norfolk Admirals, which is where he was. Well, he was in Syracuse technically the year after he won that championship with Norfolk when he tells this story. But Dustin Tokarski gets carjacked. They end up having to race to the game, fall behind 5-0. Tokarski, who was given the night off because he was traumatized by the carjacking, gets sent into the game, and they come back and win 6-5, and Tokarski's the first star. That's just a great story, isn't it?
Unbelievable story.
It's almost like a little movie.
It is, and the funny thing
it's
is...
a little too perfect.
Yeah. Well, I thought I was always, I think I've said to you guys before, one of the things that I was anxious about going into the book was bullshit stories.
Yeah.
Stories, because we all know that people tell fish stories in hockey. Some stories are completely untrue. And I wanted stories that were true in the book. And so I had to do a lot of fact checking whenever possible. Look, as I say in the book, there's a little bit of embellishment here and there. But for the most part, I had to fact check to make sure these things happen. I'd call other people that were there and say, did it happen this way? And with Cooper, he sent me the score sheet because I thought maybe he's remembering this wrong. It couldn't have been like this. And he sent me the score sheet for the game and I believe the police report. So
did he really send you the police report?
Yeah, or I looked it up through it's the stuff you can access to my old journalism skills to read the report on Tokarski. So yeah, it all happened. And I just think for that game to happen in itself, a 6-5 comeback in a game like that against what was a stacked Binghamton team, but to happen in those circumstances after your goalie got carjacked and you were late to the game is just fascinating.
But I mean, you could see how this team, a lot of this group of players ended up winning a Stanley Cup. To pull off moments like that with this coach who, I don't know how many coaches are going to ride it out at the police station with their goalie all day, on a day of a game, and do what he did, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a pretty good fortune for Tokarski that he was a lawyer as well. I mean, I'm sure that's a helpful thing if you're in a situation like that, right?
That's a good point.
Yeah, I actually didn't think of that. Yeah.
The other thing I was going to say is that with Cooper winning at every level, the confidence you must have, and when you win games like that, the confidence that it builds, is something else. And I would also say that it's funny, over the years I've noticed that certain athletes and players, they have a remarkable memory for things, right? And you said that he sent you the game sheet and he sent you the police report, but you looked and you saw it as exactly as he told you, which was just interesting. I was at a banquet once and Bobby Hull was telling this story about the 1972 Summit Series, and it was a practice. And there's this play that they did with Bobby Orr, and he remembered it. How it's crazy.
It was one of the fascinating things doing the book is some guy, but not everyone's like that, Lester. Some guys' eye for detail is unbelievable.
Yes,
Kelly Chase Hully is going to be one of our upcoming. Is that next week, Stoff?
Yep. Hully's next.
So I sat down with Kelly Chase in Toronto, and he told me an hour's worth of Brett Hull stories, and just hilarious stories. They were roommates on the road for like 6 years, and some of them sound so unreal. But when I was fact checking some of Kelly's stuff, he had it to the detail of the times when guys scored goals and things like that. I was like, wow, that is unbelievable. There are other guys I won't name names, where I'm fact checking the story. I'm like, okay, that's wrong. That's wrong. That's wrong.
Yeah.
That's wrong.
Misremembering.
Because there's a lot of that goes on. Because sometimes I wonder, when you say a story like that from practice, does he remember every detail of it, or has he told the story so many times that now whatever the version he tells?
Yeah.
Well, we've had so many guys on our panel who will say like, "Oh, I did so and so in this game," and then we go look it up, and they weren't even there. Like it was.
Well, I'm going to name names. Like Glenn Healy's one of my favorite guys.
Oh yeah, he was the worst for it.
Heels is great, and Heels has a ton of great stories, but he gets like the facts wrong. So he would say, like, I don't know, we'd be talking about Steve Yzerman. He'd go, yeah, like Yzerman scored a 500th goal on me. You can look it up. And Puffy would spend a day in the archives, and Yzerman scored like his 175th on Healy, and that's it. Didn't come close to his 500. So, yeah, Heels was awesome. He just wasn't the best for the actual details. But, no, Cooper, I was really happy to see Cooper win the Stanley Cup, because I've known him for a long time, and they certainly had their setbacks in Tampa, most notably last year. For them to do it this year. And I had a conversation with him last week, and I don't think I'm giving away, hopefully not too much. I think he's starting to work on his own book, so that'll be a fascinating book in itself, because he's such a good storyteller.
Is he gonna do a podcast?
He will do a podcast, and then we will do the
after show.
I like the way this is going.
Podcast. Rubber Coopers. The After John Cooper book podcast. Coop also helped me get, just to tie things together, the Daryl chapter that we aired last week, the Sidney Crosby chapter with Eric Nielsen. The reason that happened was because of John Cooper. And I think Stoff has the clip from the interview where I asked him, at the end of our interview, after he told me the story with Tokarski, I said to Coop, is there one guy that you've coached all the way through your career that I should call, because he's going to have a bunch of good stories? Here's what he said.
I would say Eric Nielsen. He's played with Sidney Crosby. I always tell him he was the worst player I ever coached that kept getting contract extensions and increases in pay. Because he was like that valuable to a team.
Right.
And but he's he's phenomenal.
So Nielsen stayed around in Norfolk because he was just that much fun for guys.
You might say he was a beauty.
He was the ultimate beauty. Well, I think Biz Nasty was the same thing, right? Like, he stuck around in the NHL longer than he probably should have, because guys like superstars like having a guy like that around who's going to entertain them at dinner, who's going to protect them on the ice. And
it's good for the room.
Yeah,
very good for the room.
It's absolutely worth it. And they always make the best type of guys for stories like this. The second story we had was Steven Stamkos. Again, this book came together in so many weird ways. And I was talking to my financial guy, who's also Weeksy's financial guy, named Don Douglas. Guy who works for RBC. And he represents a lot of the hockey players as well with their money, who have much more money than I do with him. My $7,000 in RSPs. I am set, baby. 400.
Can you move it? Can you move it and make it happen? Make it happen.
For my 20 years of retirement, I am ready.
Oh my God.
No. So Donnie said, I think that I heard I was talking to Stammer, and his dad stole Yzerman's car. And I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, you got to call him. And so that led to the great Stamkos story, which. Again, another one of my favorites in the book. Please, again, if you're just listening to this, go back and listen to Beauties first. But we won't give all the details again here. But basically, Steven Stamkos' dad took Steve Yzerman's car by mistake after a game. And I loved hearing Chris, particular Steven's dad. Steven grew up in Unionville, and I moved there when he was just a little boy. I saw him play first when he was 10 years old. As a buddy of mine, another hockey dad, said, you got to come see this kid play. And he actually might have been like 8 or 9, playing with 11 or 12-year-olds, and had like a 5-point game at Centennial Arena. And that's the first time I saw Stamkos play. And so I got to know his dad and it's just a great guy. But he was so horrified by this. Do you imagine your father, right? When you find out you've taken the general manager's car.
It's a good thing his kid wasn't a fourth liner, though. I don't know if Stevie Y would have handled it quite as well.
Don't you love too that the dealerships, like whatever the dealership they were hooked up with in Tampa, Stammer and Iserman get the Jags.
Yeah.
Do you think that whoever is the fourth line grinder or the Luke Shen of that version of the team, sort of a seventh, eighth defenseman? What is he? Is he getting something from the dealership?
No, it ain't getting that far down.
Wow. It's a Toyota.
Yeah, like I said in the pod, a Ford Fiesta or something.
Yeah.
That's the car deals. That's one of the things I think people, they talk the perks about hockey players, and maybe that's drying up. But for the longest time, if you played in the NHL, you're getting a car free from some dealership in your city.
Yeah.
My buddy's got a dealership in Ottawa, and he usually hooks up 3 or 4 of the Sens.
Right. That's the one thing. All the players, whenever they came on our panel or come through our panel, they're like, "What? You guys don't have car deals?" We're like, "No, commentators don't get car deals like."
Well,
wow.
Jim, is this true?
I'm James Duthie from McAlpine Lincoln.
Just minutes from the 407.
I'm just saying, it took me 20 years to get my car deal with McAlpine Lincoln. But
and you jumped all over it.
Well, I'm not going to lie. The car deals are sweet because not only do you get a car, but the car is under the car dealership, so like they pay the insurance, right?
Really?
Wow.
Damn.
Yeah. So it's like it's a 2-in-1 thing. So players, the insurance on a Jag for Stamkos is probably fairly substantial. So they were living life and living large.
Yeah.
Wow.
So when Barrett and Austin, Puffy's kids who are headed for the NHL, when they make the National Hockey League,
Yes.
and Dad, when you come to town, you can have the Jag. That would go well. That would go well with you, wouldn't it? For you, wouldn't it?
Yeah. No, I will need a driver. Because the only thing worse than stealing the GM's car would be getting a Dewey while stealing.
Yeah, you do not want the Dewey.
Ever.
Did you guys have any more questions about either Stamkos or?
We have a hypothetical, but Jimmy, we haven't done our promo reads yet.
Oh, right.
People won't know what this is sponsored by.
Did you send me new ones?
I did send you new ones. Do you want me to read
them? Yeah, you can read them because I'm on my phone on Skype, so I can't do 2 things at once on my phone.
No problem. The Rubber Beauties Podcast is brought to you by the Rubber Boots Podcast. When it comes to gambling, how young is too young? No doctors, no experts, just opinions. The Rubber Boots Podcast, available wherever you find your podcasts.
Nice.
Okay, let's do the hypothetical, and then we'll do our next. These promo reads are killing it. We must be making a fortune.
Our next client's even more impressive.
Where did Puffy go? He just
I think Puffy's down. We see the ceiling. Oh, there he is.
You gotta go. You have to go pick up your kids at school now.
Yeah.
Okay, give us the hypothetical, so if we lose you, that we can carry on.
It's whose car would you least likely to want to steal at TSNs accidentally?
Oh, easy.
Least likely.
Easy.
Yeah, mine.
No.
My car.
As far
I don't want to take it home half the time.
Getting home, it's definitely Stopp's car. Lester?
Bob McKenzie.
Oh, yeah, that would be a huge mistake.
Followed closely by Rod Smith. If you don't want to park in this parking spot, like...
Oh, I have, and Rod took it very well. But nobody takes it better than Jimmy.
We go to free agency. This story is better for the Rubber Boots podcast, but I'll tell it here on the Rubber Beauties. So Bob and Gino will both block in anyone who parks in their spot, right?
Exactly.
They are blocked in and screwed. I usually won't do anything. Occasionally we'll write the note on the windshield. Particularly during the pandemic when no one is in the building. Someone has been in my spot every single time I come in. Jimmy has a nice spot right next to the door. But you know what? There's a million spots right there. There's nobody in the building. So I just find myself another spot usually. So free agent frenzy, I get there early in the morning. Same person is in my spot. Okay, no problem. I just park across the way. Gino sends me a text. Hey, dude, the security's writing a note on your car. You parked in somebody's spot. So I come out and I get the warning that your car is going to get towed because I've parked in someone else's spot because someone was in my spot. Mm-hmm. So Jimmy blew a gasket. Well, I don't really blow gaskets. And then I had to write my polite note on the windshield and said, hey, you made me get a warning because you parked in my spot.
Not cool.
Not particularly happy. Please don't do it again.
Do you know who it is?
I have no idea who it is. I believe it is the makeup artist who likes my eyebrows.
That makes sense.
Oh.
Eyebrows make the man.
That could be anybody, Jimmy.
Eyebrows make the man. My wife wants, my eyebrows go blonde in the summertime. And, sometimes when you're going on TV, they'll fill in the eyebrows. But
yes.
They go a little blonde. They go darker again in the winter, so I should be fine soon. But my wife, Brooksy, she was trying to make me dye my eyebrows.
Oh, man.
I draw the line there.
Spice things up a little.
Yeah.
This pandemic can't end soon enough, eh?
Sorry, we've
it's like she's got a whole new husband.
This is more rubber boots material, so we'll end the Rubber Beauties podcast. Again, please listen to Beauties, hockey's greatest untold stories, and the book is now available as of the day that we are taping this. Beauties, greatest untold stories, now available wherever you buy your books. Somebody said to me on the Twitter, if I listen to the podcast, will it ruin the book for me? Which is a valid question. So I would encourage people to buy the book right away. Then you can do what you want. You can listen to the podcast chapter and then read the podcast chapter. We're only gonna do little, 20% of the book, probably 10% of the book in the podcast. So there's lots of reasons to buy the book. But if you maybe read the book really quickly and then you can get the enhanced version in the podcast, what do you suggest, Steph?
I suggest getting it all.
Yeah.
Buy 3 copies of the book.
3 copies of the book and listen to the pod over and over.
That way, wherever you listen to the podcast, you always have the book with you. I would buy the e-copy of the book. Download that for sure. This post show, Puffy's post show, Lester's post show. And while we're on the topic, I will tell you that the Rubber Beauties podcast is brought to you by the Prince Puffy Estates. Call now for the family and friends rate and receive a free tip on the first half total for the Sunday Nighter. Prince Puffy Estates, where hypotheticals become reality.
Very well done, Steph.
We're almost ready to roll.
All right, well, that's it for the Rubber Beauties After Show podcast. Just a huge success, and once again, we'll probably kill the ratings of the actual Beauties podcast. Was there one other piece of sound you wanted to roll?
It's what people want. We do have some behind-the-scenes sound from you, James. Now, I wasn't there when you recorded this, so you may have to explain it to our listeners.
Oh, okay.
But we can play this quick clip here.
So I go in and I record the podcast at TSN, and Stoff gets one of his many buddies to help press the record. And this is what is this, an outtake or what is it? Go ahead.
Yeah, let's listen.
Does it get too big or anything? I don't know this stuff. Just keep it going.
Does it get?
I'm not sure what you were asking the operator there, but I hope it didn't get too big.
I believe Stoff, I was referring to the file. And takes a long time to record these things, and I was worried that the file was getting too large. But thank you for taking me out of context. I appreciate that,
guys. I don't know if you're watching the feed, but Puffy's getting ready to rob a bank or something.
Yeah.
He's got a mask on.
You're all accomplices now, bitches. Snitches get stitches. We're all in it together.
We will see you and listen to the Rubber Boots podcast, which will follow up on this one. And don't forget to tune into Beauties next week. Kelly Chase's incredible stories about Brett Hall. Thanks for listening.
Rubber Beauties, the truth to themselves. Rubber Beauties, the truth. So beautiful. It's true, it's true. Rubber beauties. Rubber beauties. They're true. They're true to themselves.
Are you wearing your rubber boots tonight?